$44 million saved Tommy Norris. Or so it seemed. But what if that money was never meant to save him at all? What if the cartel did not invest in CTT to help it grow, but to make sure it would collapse at the perfect moment? In Landman Season 3, a quiet fear begins to rise. Tommy did not take a lifeline. He stepped into a trap that was built from the very first dollar. When Landman ended Season 2, Tommy Norris stood at the edge of ruin. He lost his position, his power, and almost his future. Then suddenly, the impossible happened. A massive $44 million deal appeared, offered through Dan Morell's network. On the surface, it looked like redemption. A fresh company, a family business, a second chance to rebuild with his son and his father. CTT was born as a symbol of recovery, proof that Tommy could still rise after being pushed down. But Season 3 slowly suggests something darker. The deal did not arrive with the normal rules of business. There were no long negotiations, no careful planning, no visible exit strategy. Just money, fast and heavy, tied to people who never explain themselves fully. In the world of Landman, power never comes without a price. Money is never just money. It always carries expectations, control, and consequences. That is why fans are questioning the true purpose of the $44 million. Cartel-backed money does not behave like normal investment. It does not wait patiently for profit. It moves like pressure. It pushes people into corners. And it creates dependence. The size of the deal matters. It is too big to walk away from, but not big enough to guarantee safety. That places CTT in a dangerous middle space. The company must keep growing or it will collapse. There is no room to pause. No room to breathe. No room to fail quietly. Dan Morell's behavior makes this even more suspicious. He does not act like a man who needs CTT to succeed. He acts like a man who only needs Tommy to keep moving, expanding, risking, building. Every new well, every new contract, every new permit increases Tommy's exposure. The deeper he goes, the harder it becomes to escape. Dan's warning in Season 2 is not about business loss. It is about personal loss. He does not say Tommy will lose money. He implies Tommy will lose what he loves most. That is not how investors speak. That is how leverage is created. CTT is introduced as a family company, but its structure feels fragile from the start. It is underprotected, overexposed, and completely dependent on one source of funding tied to criminal influence. There is no safety net, no diversified backing, no shield against legal or political pressure. Tommy builds too fast because he has to. If growth slows, the whole system falls apart. This kind of setup mirrors real-world cartel operations. They are often designed to function only as long as nothing goes wrong. The moment trouble appears, the people running them are forced to obey in exchange for survival. The risks from Tommy's past do not disappear when CTT is created. Regulatory enemies, environmental issues, and political attention all follow him into the new company. Instead of spreading that danger across a large corporation, it is now concentrated into one small, vulnerable operation. If CTT fails, the cartel loses nothing. The money was already dirty. But Tommy loses everything. His name, his freedom, his family's future. That imbalance is what makes the deal feel predatory. Season 3 does not announce this openly. It whispers it through tone, through silence, through unease. Meetings feel heavier. Decisions feel rushed. Tommy becomes more tense, more reactive. He is no longer planning far ahead. He is surviving moment to moment. Fans see this not as confidence, but as early panic. The company that was meant to be his rebirth begins to look like a machine that needs him to keep running until it breaks him. And then there is Cooper. His involvement makes the situation even more dangerous. He is ambitious, emotional, and tied to the company's success. That makes him vulnerable. Earlier seasons already showed that he accepted money connected to the same network without fully understanding what it meant. This suggests a pattern. The trap is not just for Tommy. It is generational. If CTT begins to struggle, Cooper becomes leveraged too. Not through threats, but through legal risk, financial ruin, and fear of losing everything he built with his father. The most disturbing idea is this. Failure may be more useful than success. If CTT grows too strong, Tommy gains independence. He gains options. That weakens control. But if the company struggles, he becomes desperate again. Desperation creates obedience. Obedience creates opportunity. A slow collapse allows the cartel to stay invisible while tightening its grip. Regulators can be blamed. Markets can be blamed. Tommy will be blamed. Meanwhile, land, equipment, and influence can quietly change hands. The $44 million was not a gift. It was a structure. A system designed to keep Tommy moving forward with no safe way back. What looked like a rescue may have been a countdown. And as Season 3 unfolds, one question grows louder with every episode. Was CTT ever meant to survive, or was it built to fail from the very beginning? At first glance, it feels strange to think the cartel would want CTT to fail. A successful company means clean profits, legal cover, and long-term stability. But Landman keeps showing us that this world does not work on normal business logic. Control is more valuable than profit. Fear is more reliable than contracts. And desperation is easier to manage than independence. If CTT succeeds too cleanly, Tommy becomes strong again. He gains influence, credibility, and options. He can walk away. He can renegotiate. He can protect his family. That is dangerous for people who rely on leverage. Failure, on the other hand, creates pressure. When a company starts to crack, the people inside it make choices they would never make when things are stable. They accept help they would normally refuse. They ignore risks they would normally avoid. They trade freedom for survival. This is why fans believe the deal was structured to keep CTT permanently unstable. Not dead, but never safe. Always one problem away from disaster. Season 3 supports this idea through its darker tone. The story slows down. It spends more time on paperwork, meetings, and silent tension. Violence is no longer loud and sudden. It is implied. Threats are quiet. Power moves through systems instead of fists. This shift suggests that the danger is not coming from one explosive event. It is coming from a process that is tightening slowly. A long trap, not a quick one. Look at how problems begin to stack up. Legal pressure does not disappear. It increases. Permits take longer. Audits grow wider. Every delay costs money. Every delay creates stress. Cash flow tightens, not because the company is badly run, but because obstacles appear at the worst possible moments. These problems look natural from the outside. Market forces, regulation, politics. But together they create a pattern. The company is always reacting, never stabilizing, always moving forward because stopping means collapse. This is where Dan Morell's role becomes clearer. He does not rush. He does not panic. He observes. He waits. His power is not in direct orders, but in timing. He steps in when Tommy is weakest, when solutions feel urgent. Each offer of help carries a hidden cost. Each temporary fix adds another thread to the web. Tommy believes he is solving problems. In reality, he may be sinking deeper into dependency. There is also the question of visibility. If CTT fails in a dramatic way, attention will fall on Tommy, not on the source of the money. Regulators will investigate the company, not the network behind it. The cartel remains in the shadows while the legal system focuses on the man who signed the contracts. This is how systemic traps work. They protect the architects and destroy the operators. Another layer of the theory is asset capture. When a company collapses under debt or legal pressure, someone always steps in to claim what is left. Land, equipment, licenses, influence. These things do not disappear. They change hands. A failing company is easier to strip than a successful one. What cannot be taken legally can be taken through pressure. What cannot be taken through pressure can be taken through time. Tommy's greatest weakness is not ignorance. It is confidence. He believes he understands this world because he has survived it before. He believes experience makes him immune. But cartel economics are not the same as oil politics. In business, risk can be calculated. In criminal power structures, risk is weaponized. The more Tommy trusts his ability to handle danger, the more dangerous the situation becomes. His decision to involve his family also changes the shape of the trap. CTT is not just a company anymore. It is emotional. It is personal. That makes every threat stronger without ever being spoken. Pressure does not need to touch Tommy directly. It can move through his son, his father, his reputation. Control becomes indirect but constant. Cooper's role deepens this tension. He is ambitious and inexperienced. He wants to prove himself. That makes him easy to influence. Earlier seasons already showed him taking money without fully understanding its source. Now he is tied to the company's fate. If CTT struggles, Cooper becomes a pressure point. Legal trouble, financial collapse, public shame. None of these require violence to work. They work because people fear losing the future they imagined. The most unsettling part of this theory is that the trap does not need a villain's speech. There will be no moment where Dan says, This was my plan all along. The trap works precisely because it looks like normal business. Normal failure. Normal stress. But every step is guided by a structure that benefits one side only. By the middle of season 3, the audience is no longer watching a comeback story. They are watching a pressure system. Every success feels temporary. Every win feels fragile. The company does not grow stronger. It grows heavier, more complex, more exposed. Tommy is no longer climbing out of danger. He is walking deeper into it, believing that forward is the only direction left. If this theory is right, then the tragedy of season 3 is not betrayal. It is inevitability. The idea that the worst mistake was not one decision, but the first one. Accepting the money. Accepting the structure. Accepting a deal that could only end one way. CTT was never meant to be stable. It was meant to be useful. And usefulness in this world comes from weakness. As season 3 moves forward, the pressure around CTT begins to feel less like coincidence and more like design. Small problems stop being small. A delayed permit is no longer just paperwork. A routine audit no longer feels routine. Each obstacle appears at the exact moment the company can least afford it. Cash flow tightens, deadlines shrink, and every decision carries risk. Tommy is forced into constant motion, fixing one crisis only to create another. The company never reaches balance. It only survives from one emergency to the next. This is how the trap tightens without anyone announcing it. There is no single betrayal. There is no dramatic reveal. Instead, there is exhaustion, confusion, the slow realization that every path leads to the same place. Tommy begins to notice that help always comes with conditions. Advice always comes with consequences. What looks like support is really guidance toward choices that benefit someone else. The cartel's influence does not arrive as violence. It arrives as solutions. A quiet offer to smooth over a problem. A suggestion to move money differently. A reminder of past favors. Each step feels temporary, but together they form a chain. Tommy believes he is staying in control, but the options available to him grow fewer. His freedom shrinks without him seeing the walls. The emotional cost is just as heavy as the financial one. Family meetings turn tense. Trust begins to erode. Cooper feels the weight of expectations he is not ready to carry. He wants to prove himself, but the company's struggle pulls him into conflicts he does not fully understand. Every mistake he makes becomes another weakness in the structure. Not because he is careless, but because he is human. The trap does not need perfect victims. It only needs people who care. Tommy's past becomes a weapon against him. Regulators do not forget his name. Political enemies remember his influence. Environmental issues follow him from one company to the next. Instead of escaping his history, he is dragging it behind him. CTT was supposed to be a clean slate. Instead, it becomes a place where all his risks are concentrated. One investigation can touch everything. One delay can freeze the entire operation. The most dangerous moment is when Tommy realizes he cannot simply walk away. The money is tied to too many contracts. The company is tied to too many people. Leaving would not mean freedom. It would mean collapse. And collapse would not just destroy a business. It would expose him legally, financially, and publicly. The system is built so that the worst choice and the only choice begin to look the same. This is where the theory reaches its darkest point. If CTT fails, the cartel does not lose. The money was already dirty. But Tommy loses his future. His reputation. Possibly his freedom. He becomes the face of the disaster while the true power behind it remains hidden. The failure looks like bad management, bad luck, or bad timing. But underneath it is a structure that never offered a safe ending. There may come a moment when Tommy understands that the deal was never meant to be equal. That the $44 million was not an investment in a company, but an investment in a man's vulnerability. The more he tried to protect his family by building CTT, the more he tied them to the risk. The company that was meant to secure their future becomes the tool that endangers it. Season 3 does not need explosions to be tragic. Its tragedy is quiet. It lives in meetings that go wrong. In calls that bring bad news. In the way Tommy starts to hesitate before answering questions. The tension comes from knowing that the system is already in motion. That no single brave act can undo it easily. The danger is not one enemy. It is a design. If Season 1 was about survival and Season 2 was about power, then Season 3 becomes about entrapment. Not by force, but by agreement. Not by chains, but by contracts. CTT stops being a comeback story and turns into a pressure chamber. Every decision adds weight. Every delay adds heat. And eventually something must give. The theory that the $44 million deal was a trap changes how the whole story looks. What seemed like luck becomes strategy. What seemed like opportunity becomes control. Tommy believed he was buying time. In truth, he may have been buying inevitability. CTT may never have been built to stand. It may have been built to fall in a way that benefits everyone except the man who built it. And when that fall comes, the cost will not be counted in dollars. It will be counted in trust, freedom, and the future Tommy thought he was protecting. In Landman Season 3, the real danger is not the cartel's power. It is the idea that the trap was already closed the moment the money changed hands.